I wanted to talk about the psychology that dismantles racism. I'm Mona Loy, a writer, a poet, a DJ, and what they call these days a social influencer, touching on the sensitive topic of racism. The psychology of racism. I want to talk about something we overlook when discussing racism. We talk about laws, we talk about history, we talk about protest, discrimination, statistics, and injustice, but there's a missing layer underneath all of it. A layer that explains why racism survives, why it adapts, why it shapes, why it shapeshifts, why it can go quiet, subtle, polite, yet powerful. And that missing layer is the psychology that protects racism. Because racism doesn't just exist because someone hates someone else. It exists because there are mental habits, emotional rewards, defense mechanisms, and social incentives that keep racist systems alive, often without people consciously realizing that they're doing it. Today we're going to walk through that psychology. It's simple, and we're going to do it in human terms, through real situations and relatable stories. Because if we want to dismantle racism, truly dismantle it, we have to understand what human beings get from keeping it alive. It's the comfort of familiar faces. He didn't pick it up, it was handed to him by his family. Culture, tabloid, headlines, jokes at a pub, and the echo chamber of people like him. One day he admitted something powerful. He said, "If my childhood story about my country being the good guys isn't true, then what does that make me growing up cheering for it?" That moment right there is the key. Racism often persists not because people are cruel, but because letting go of old beliefs feels like letting go of an identity or belonging, or even pride. People protect racism because it protects their sense of self. That's the first psychological barrier, the need to preserve a comfortable story. There's another part of this psychology, and you've seen it everywhere. You say, "That comment was racist," and someone replies, "No, it wasn't. I'm not racist. I never said the N-word. I have a black friend." Why this instant defensiveness? Because many people think racist means evil, and no one sees themselves as evil. So instead of examining the behavior, people react as though they're being accused of having a disease. This is called identity-based defense. It means people protect their ego before they protect the truth. So the conversation ends, not because they're right, not because nothing's happened, but because psychologically, they're too busy defending their self-image to hear reality. And this leads to the second barrier. Racism survives because people would rather protect their identity than confront their impact. If I didn't mean it, it doesn't count. Another psychological shield is intent. People think that if they didn't mean to be racist, then the harm doesn't exist. It's accidental, so we're meant to brush it away. But imagine this, someone steps on your foot hard. They turn around and say, "Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there." The apology may be genuine, but the pain is real. Racism works the same way. People cling to innocence because it allows them to avoid responsibility. And so the third psychological protector is this: overvaluing intent and ignoring impact. This is the part we don't discuss enough. You see, racism isn't just hateful ideas, it's also benefits, comforts, and advantages, sometimes tiny, sometimes enormous. People protect racism because they fear losing economic advantage. They fear losing social status. They fear losing a world where they are the default. They fear losing an identity built around superiority. They fear equality because equality feels like a loss to those who were previously centered. There's a psychological truth. People don't give up privileges voluntarily, even ones they never earned. And that's why the fourth protector is fear of loss, status, comfort, control, or certainty. There's also the group loyalty and crowd effect. Humans are tribal. We want to belong, we want to be accepted, we want to be part of our people. So if someone grows up in a community where racist ideas are normalized, even politely, quietly, subtly, those ideas become the price of admission. A young person might think, if I challenge this, I'll lose my place here. My people won't see me as one of them. So silence becomes a survival skill. Racism is often protected not by the extremists, but by the ordinary people who don't speak up because the emotional cost feels too high. This brings us to protector number 5, social belonging. People protect racism to protect their place in their group. Let's be honest, the human brain is lazy. It loves shortcuts, stereotypes, and mental shortcuts. Generalizing whole groups is a shortcut. Believing simple stories about complex issues is a shortcut. The alternative, learning, questioning, challenging, admitting we were misinformed, is harder work. So instead of complexity, the mind chooses convenience. And that's why racism is psychologically efficient. It gives people a narrative that doesn't require effort. Thus, protector number 6. The mind prefers simple, familiar shortcuts over difficult truths. Here's something many people don't realize. Most racism survives because good people stay silent, not because they agree with racism, not because they support injustice, but because they fear conflict, awkwardness, embarrassment, or being the one who makes it a problem. A woman once told me I didn't speak up because I didn't want to ruin the mood, but the mood she protected was built on someone else's humiliation. And here is protector number 7. Politeness and conflict avoidance often protect racism more than malice does. Finally, racism survives because societies develop collective memory loss. People forget that racist systems were created deliberately through law, science, religion, economics, empire, media, and culture. People forget how recent it all is. Not ancient history, but yesterday. Without memory, racism looks like an accident instead of an engineered structure. And if people believe it's accidental, they don't feel responsible for fixing it. Which leads to the 8th psychological protector. Forgetting the origins of racism makes people believe the outcomes are natural. Let me share one last story if I've got time. A woman sat on a London bus listening to a man complain loudly about immigrants taking over everything. She didn't say a word. And the woman next to her didn't say a word. And the man across from her didn't say a word. After a few minutes, the woman whispered to the person beside her, I didn't want to make a scene, but I feel sick just sitting here. This is what the psychology of racism does. It doesn't always reward the racist. It punishes everyone else into silence. And that's how racism survives, not just through the loud voices, but through the quiet ones. So how do we break this? We can't dismantle racism with slogans, guilt, shouting, or shame. We dismantle it by understanding, really understanding the emotional engines underneath it. We challenge the comfortable stories. We reduce defensiveness by separating identity from behavior. We shift the focus from intent to impact. We name the fear of loss and deal with it honestly. We empower people to resist group pressure. We encourage complexity over shortcuts. We support those who speak up instead of punishing them. And remember, we speak loudly. The history we prefer to forget. When we understand the psychology that protects racism, racism loses its camouflage. It loses the invisible cloak that allows it to hide in ordinary conversations, institutions, and habits. Because racism isn't just a system, it's an attitude. It's a story many people cling to because it makes their world feel stable. But if we want a better world, we have to help people build a new story. One that isn't built on fear, shortcuts, silence, or superiority, but on truth, humanity, and responsibility. That's how dismantling begins. So I hope you found that useful, and I hope you found it informative. And that's all I'm going to say for now. Bye-bye.